the UFC gonna do for the fighter? I know guys now. Well, pay-per-view's going away. What are they gonna do? I know guys now that are making more money than they did when they were making pay-per-view. Yeah, because pay-per-views just maybe weren't selling as much as they used to. Whenever we were fighting, and I was fighting John Jones and Rumble Johnson and having Nate Diaz on my card, I was making a boatload of money in pay-per-view. That's not the reality of the world.
You ever broke $1 million, huh?
Yes.
You did or didn't?
One time.
One time, and that was your second Jones fight?
No, 2 times.
2 times.
Jones, 1 time, and then Brock Lesnar was on the card at UFC 200.
Got it.
That was the biggest one we ever did.
Got it.
So it was like 1.4, which was, that's a crazy number.
Yeah, that's a huge number.
All right, guys. So this is an interview that happened on Josh Thompson's YouTube channel podcast called Weighing In. He's obviously speaking to Daniel Cormier, and they're discussing fighters and are they going to have more money on this clip. And DC alluded to something very interesting, and it's that fighters prior to this deal going into effect with Paramount Plus have already begun negotiating with the UFC in terms of their contracts. According to DC, the brass has begun negotiating, and fighters are being restructured since there's not going to be any pay-per-view points. Now, in the comments, there's a lot of negative feedback going towards Daniel, calling him a UFC shill, and obviously criticizing that he works for the company, so therefore he's going to talk, he's going to back Dana and the brass. I don't know if this is true or not. I think if it's coming from someone like DC, it has to have some level of credibility. We know that Dana's been out for the last couple of months. We haven't really heard much from him since the last press conference in December. And it could be that this is happening. I do believe that DC is saying the truth. But the reason I think he's saying that is, again, we're talking about Daniel Cormier, 2-division champion for the UFC. And I mentioned this in other videos. I've never heard any of the top fighters, champions, high-level contenders ever say anything negative about their payouts. But again, Josh Thompson himself did not renew with the UFC, and he talked about this on one of his Q&As as well. He was never a champion, but he was a high-level fighter and ended up going to Bellator at one time or another. Now, again, this was many years ago. So I think there's validity to what DC is saying, but it really goes, again, the top-level fighters are taken care of. I explained this on a previous video. There are 3 tiers to UFC fighters. 65% of that roster are entry-level 12 and 12 guys. Mid-level, you're starting, you win more than you lose. You're on your second contract. You're in that 300,000 to 500,000 range. And then, of course, you have the top 10%, which is your top 15 pound for pound, your top 5 numbered contenders, right? The guys that are going to be fighting for championships or probably be the headliners for your fight nights. But that's where the $250 million projected lie for the top 10% out of a $300 million pot. So that's what I think is happening. I think DC obviously is only seeing it from his perspective, his lens, the top fighters that he works with, right? Or his friends like Islam Makhachev, guys that are still competing for AKA, the same gym that he operates out of, they work out of. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this? You like it? You don't like it? Leave a comment. Is DC a shill? I'm inclined to say no. I just think he's looking at it from the elite perspective. Talk to you guys next time.